Now, let's talk about Dr. Anthony Fauci. You'll know him, the Trump administration's top coronavirus advisor. Well, today he's directly contradicted President Trump on the issue of testing. He's also said some parts of the country are seeing a disturbing surge in infections. Let me take you through the figures first. COVID-19's killed 120,000 people. There are more than 2.3 million cases. In more than half the states, the number of new cases is still rising. You can see that in the South and the West that's happening, particularly in states which loosened their restrictions early on. Texas, for example, recorded its biggest number of new cases on Saturday, and the number of people in hospital with the virus has risen for 11 consecutive days. California's infection rate has been surging through the last week. The number of people in hospital there has surpassed the peak in April. And then there's Florida. It's seeing cases rise sharply. It's now the 7th state to reach 100,000 cases. Bear all of that in mind as we turn to this issue of testing. First of all, here's Dr. Fauci.
A couple of days ago, there were 30,000 new infections. That's very troublesome to me. The way you address that, and I've said this over and over again, is you have to have the manpower, the system, the testing to identify, isolate, and contact trace in an effective way so that when you see those increases, you can understand where they're coming from and you can do something about them.
So let's compare that with this. Here's the president tweeting, "Cases are going up in the US because we're testing far more than any other country and ever expanding. With smaller testing, we would show fewer cases." Now, of course, the main driver of America's numbers is not the testing. It's the fact that lots of people have COVID-19. And that tweet follows on from Saturday.
When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Well, the president's press secretary, when asked about that, said it was a joke. But then the president said this today.
I don't kid. Let me just tell you, let me make it clear. We have got the greatest testing program anywhere in the world. Testing is a double-edged sword. In one way, it tells you you have cases. In another way, you find out where the cases are, and you do a good job. We are doing a great job. We have never been credited for it.
There's the president saying he's making things clear, all of which led to Dr. Fauci being asked about the idea of slowing up the testing.
I know for sure, but to my knowledge, none of us have ever been told to slow down on testing. That just is a fact. In fact, we will be doing more testing.
And if you're still with me, here's the president tweeting since that statement from Dr. Fauci saying, "We did a great job on the virus. We saved millions of US lives." He goes on to describe Dr. Anthony Fauci as with us in all ways. But these guys have history. President Trump called advice from Dr. Fauci in May unacceptable. In June, when Dr. Fauci said that resuming American football games may be impossible, the president tweeted, "Tony Fauci has nothing to do with NFL football." Well, to try and help us through all of this, here's Barbara Plett-Usher in Washington on what else health officials have been saying today.
They said it's an uneven picture across the United States. It's a massive country, and the level of coronavirus infections is different in different parts. And so you have, on the one hand, some bright spots like New York, where the number of cases has gone down. But then you have those other areas that Dr. Fauci said were troubling or disturbing with surges. He mentioned Texas and Florida and Arizona, but there are also other states. In fact, the coronavirus cases are increasing in about half of American states right now. And that is for various reasons, but one of them is because the way those states have reopened is also sort of uneven. There have been guidelines from the Center for Disease Control about how the states should reopen, but they're not mandatory, and different governors have taken different approaches. In some cases, they have opened before they've met those guidelines, and now it seems we're seeing the results of that. In fact, Dr. Fauci said one of the reasons for the increase in coronavirus cases was not necessarily because of the extra testing, but because of community transmission. And he said the next couple of weeks would be critical in determining how they would be able to deal with that sort of surge. So yes, we saw the picture, a very mixed picture, a mixed bag, as Dr. Fauci called it.
And I don't mean to be flippant when I ask this next question, Barbara, but to what degree do the president's utterances on this matter? You talk about a mixed bag. To what degree is that really dictated by how the states act rather than what the president says?
I think what the president does is the most important thing. And the bottom line, Roz, is that he has not modeled the guidelines that the Center for Disease Control has put out. He is not wearing a mask. He's consistently refused to wear a mask so far. And also, he has definitely pivoted from the pandemic to the re-election. So he plays down the threat of the pandemic, and he plays up what he says is the success of the reopening. And those people who want to hear that message feel empowered to act on it. And those people who don't want to follow the guidelines that strictly, or who feel in their own experience that they don't think it's that much of a threat, do not feel pressured to take action. So I think his actions speak the loudest.
Well, let's stay in the Americas. Have a look at this graph. It shows new coronavirus cases, and you can see the US there marked in red, and there's Brazil in purple. Brazil has the second highest total of cases in the world, over 1 million, and over 50,000 people have died. Well, these are some of the latest pictures to come into us. These are aerial pictures of a cemetery in Manaus in the north of Brazil, which has been particularly badly affected. This is a private hospital in the city of Niterói, just near to Rio de Janeiro. It's turned into a coronavirus ICU, as you can see. Another development in Brazil is that a judge has ordered President Bolsonaro to wear a protective mask when he's in public spaces. Now, much like his hero, President Trump, as you can see, Mr. Bolsonaro is not keen on wearing masks. At one rally, he was filmed coughing without covering his mouth. On another occasion, he sneezed into his hand and then shook the hand of an elderly woman immediately afterwards, which, frankly, virus or no virus, isn't ideal. The judge said if the president and other public officials do not comply with the requirements to wear a mask in public, they'll be fined close to $400 US. And you don't imagine the prospect of that's going to bother the president one bit.